everybody? Welcome to 1v1. I'm your host, Ben Lightship, and excited Eddie B. Joining me, of course, it's the one and only Weekly Cooldown of the week. Everybody from the Weekly Cooldown, please welcome back Kamijace. Hello, good sir.
Hello. Very excited.
Yes. If you guys don't know who Kamijace is, he's the host of the Weekly Cooldown. You guys can check that out, and he's gonna plug all of that. But he was also my co-host on the not Black Lives Matter, on the Pride panel that we had for March 1st Games. And Kamijace, we are inviting you back. And I'm probably gonna invite LaRon, and so on, and another person. I'm probably gonna get Ty on it because everybody really loved it, and Corey wants to have another Pride panel on it. And so I'm excited because we all had so much fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And I would love to have you guys back and really talk about. And I think it'll be a good thing to talk about the cyberpunk thing. If you guys don't know that, they're letting you customize your character in certain ways. And it's going to be interesting on how trans people or trans players, I should say, are going to approach that and stuff. But before we get into all of that, Kamijace, as a content creator, how did the Weekly Cooldown start? And before we even get into that, I'm sorry, I had to ask this. How did you actually get into gaming?
Oh, how did I get into gaming? So that's always a fun question because it goes back to when I was maybe about 3 or 4. My brother had a Sega Genesis. That's really what I remember playing first and foremost, because that was the one that was in our bedroom. And then we had the regular Nintendo, and that was in my mom's room because she always enjoyed playing that on her own without us in the room and stuff like that. So it was those two consoles, but first and foremost was the Genesis. We played a lot of Sonic, Streets of Rage 2, which is one of my favorite games ever.
Yes.
Specifically 2, by the way. I like 1 and I like 3, but 2 is my absolute favorite. It's what I grew up on. I cried at the end every time we played it. It never it never missed a beat. Like, as soon as the somber music started playing, it was like tears already going.
3 is a messy game, but 2 it's just like, when you hear that ending, you just be like,
it's time to cry.
Accomplished. I mean,
Waterworks.
It's crazy that how Streets of Rage 2 is one of those games that you get sucked in and you literally play maybe every track from every level.
It's fantastic. I actually I'm working on hopefully getting some new music for my show for the intro, and the person working on it was like, okay, so give me some examples of some gamey music that you like, and I was like, here, the entire soundtrack, just take it. Because it's just a really good soundtrack. It does a lot of experimental things with not MIDI, I don't think, but 16-bit sounds and stuff like that, and it's just it's a wonderful, wonderful soundtrack. And when I was designing a pilot for my podcast, I actually used that as my background music before I was like, maybe I shouldn't do that. But it was actually kind of what helped me to kind of start thinking about what I was going to do for a podcast. But going back to when I was 3, there's also another game I can never remember when it comes time to talk about it, but it was kind of like Contra, but not Contra.
Was it Sega Genesis?
Yes. You played as these 2 shooter guys, and you were flying around the map, and there's a lot of little things flying at you, and there's this shop that's run by an anime girl, and
by Capcom. Because you turn in a circle, you collect Zenny.
I think so.
Because it was like you go to shops to buy your power ups and everything.
And then the creatures were really scary looking, but it was a lot of fun, and I played it with my brother all the time. But I can never remember the name when it comes down to it, and it makes me so mad. And like maybe every every couple of years, I'm like, oh, what was that game called again? And then I'll spend like 3 hours searching for it on Google.
I know what you mean because it was Capcom made it, but Sega published it because Capcom wasn't on Sega Genesis at the time.
Well, with Street Fighter, they must have been.
Right, but Sega was doing ports of Capcom games because Ghouls and Ghosts,
Ah, I
Super
see.
Ghouls and Ghosts and stuff were coming out because they did Strider on
Right. That's
on it.
right. Yeah, you're right
It
about
they never uh they never like officially signed on it.
Can never
So
remember this one game though, and it was one of my favorite games. I would always bug my brother to play it.
Forgotten Worlds.
Oh my God, you might be right. That sounds so. That sounds so right. Yep,
It was
that's exactly what it is. Ah,
Forgotten Worlds.
I have to
Yes.
remember what this is called because I never can remember, and I legitimately I can remember every single thing
Hmm.
about the game. I can remember the colors. I can remember the final boss. Everything about it except for the name, and I
And
think it's
and
because I never had to refer to it as anything.
and the funny thing about Forgotten Worlds is that I beat the game because I rented it close to our one of the rental places by us. And it
Hmm.
was just like I thought it was an original game for the Sega Genesis. And I didn't know that it was an arcade game.
Yep.
I was just like,
And it
wow.
came out on the Wii too, and I got it on the Wii, but again forgot what it was called, so I could not tell you for the life of me what it was called. But yeah, it all started with the Genesis, and later the Nintendo. When me and my mother and my brother would all take turns playing as Mario and Super Mario Brothers 3, because that was one
Hmm.
of the only games we had aside from Chrysalis, which was an amazing game. Um, then
Game I
from
never got a chance to play.
Chrysalis is one of those games that, like, if you're looking for old school things to play, I would say, like, please go pick that up. It is so cool. It's a really good old school RPG. It's just a lot of fun. Um, and then from then on, it was just if I could play a video game, I played it. So my brother was uh, keeping up with it with the first PlayStation, and I would usually watch him play games because we didn't have many, but you know we
Hmm.
had Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, tons of demo discs. So I was always playing some demo. He picked up Silent Hill and Resident Evil, which remain to this day as one of my favorite series, two of my favorite series rather, but Resident Evil more so since it's obviously continued to grow. Um, and then after the PS1, he would just kind of fell out, but I kept up with it. So I got the PS2 and I got
Hmm.
tons of games for that that are sitting at my mom's house that I wish I could go get like at this very moment. And here I am many years later.
Well, that is awesome. So, like I mentioned, you host a show called the Weekly Cooldown. Can you tell everybody about the show and how it came about?
Yeah, so the Weekly Cooldown is a gaming news podcast where we get to know the gaming news of the week and we also get to know our guest. It kind of came about simply because of a couple of different little factors. One being around 2016, 2017, I really started listening to more podcasts. A
Hmm.
lot of my favorites are on the Earwolf Network and Headgum Network. And I just liked what they were doing. Everyone's really funny on the shows on those networks too, and that it just felt very personable, and I kind of decided to try and pursue radio because of it. I went in a separate direction, um, and I also have a degree in communication studies. So I've done radio work before, I've done writing before, I've done a little bit of everything, PR, marketing, whatever. Um, so I wanted to see like, okay, maybe I can make a career out of being on the radio. And I visited my local station. I asked for an interview. I got an interview with the head of the director at the time, who was also a teacher of mine in college. And he sat down with me and said, look, we don't have anything right now, but if you want to come back maybe in a couple of months, we might have something then. I said, okay, yeah. And he goes, I'm really sorry. There's nothing really concrete, but if it makes you feel any better, you have a really nice voice for radio. And I said, okay, thank you. I really enjoy that. Thank you so much. And I've always been told, like, oh, you have a nice voice. It's very soothing, blah, blah, blah. And I've never really listened to anyone. But hearing him say it, like director of my local news station, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I have to believe him. He was like my teacher and he's the dude in charge. So, like, he knows what the fuck he's talking about. So, um, it was like after that night, I was like, you know what I can do to kind of showcase my talents and to get some practice in for radio is host a podcast. And so I spent a couple of days kind of brainstorming what I would do. And I decided to combine my two loves, which is news and gaming and journalism and gaming. And I kind of just made them fight each other. And then this beautiful monster came out.
It's so weird. My journey is kind of different because I never thought about podcasting. I never thought about getting into radio or anything like that. My thing was like I wanted to talk to people about video games, but I didn't have no
Mm-hmm.
one around. But then, like I talked before, OneUp.com came along, and it was Jeff Davis, and they people who did
Mm-hmm.
Electronic Gaming Monthly, and EGM was like the Bible to me. Like that's my video game Bible and everything. And so I would like every week. I mean, every month they would come. I would try and go to Walgreens or to a bookstore and buy their book, and even some of their spinoffs I would literally buy. And when they opened up uh the good thing to the community for people to write blogs and stuff, I was writing video game blogs, and Option Opinion got birthed because of of me writing it first, but then be like, you know what? They're looking for a podcast name. I'm like, this might be cool. So I sent it to them. They didn't pick it, and I'm just like, well, I've been writing this thing, and I'm going to keep it. And Optional Opinion birthed on from there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a blog. It's been a video show for a little bit off of UStream or something back in the past, and now it's all audio. And I was just like, I never thought about getting into journalism, but it just happened,
I'm
you
kind of
know.
going backwards now because I'm thinking like, okay, now I should start writing things to go along with the
Mhm.
podcast, and then I'm also like, you know what else I should do? I should do like video essays and
Mhm.
this and that and the other. And usually people like start out writing, then go to YouTube, then make a podcast. I'm like, no, no, no,
Yes.
not this one. We start with the
Exactly.
podcast, and then we'll just work our way backwards.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's so I'm getting ready to start the beauty of video games this year. Um and this is more kind of like celebrating things in the game. It's always being positive. I put one like downer, like negative story, but the negative provides the beauty of a part of the gaming. Like you got to sometimes have a downfall to have something big. And I kind of
Absolutely.
I this year it's about the technical aspect of games. So
Hmm.
I'm doing like cutscenes, lighting, camera work and stuff. And I kind of want to ask you like what is special about games that make you want to like do a bigger project or do the weekly cooldown? Like is it does it get to a point where, man, I really want to spend time doing a podcast about this or
Right.
something in the news and stuff?
So for me, it's kind of the idea. First of all, I always like the idea that anything can kind of be journalism, right?
Hmm.
So in the wider spectrum of games journalism, it was mostly like, oh, here's the new releases for this month, or here's what's coming out later, blah 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 blah. And you would get that in a magazine, and then you'd get some reviews, maybe an interview or two with some directors, and that's that. But now video game journalism has evolved to where we can talk about anything from workplace harassment to new releases to the community writ large, everything really. And I really, really enjoy that you can make a journalistic community out of anything, and I wanted to be a part of that. So that's part of the reason why I'm doing the weekly cooldown. It's not my own reporting, but it is kind of us rehashing the news, giving you some extra opinions, and also kind of re-reporting it so that you go and you seek your information from there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe strongly in having good media literacy skills. And part of having good media literacy is being able to take a story that you hear from me and saying, I'd like to look more into that, and going through finding some extra sources, maybe even scouring Twitter or forums or anything like that, and seeing what they think about it, and forming your own opinion based on what you're hearing and reading, and not just from um, any one source or any two sources, but multiple sources, multiple people, and understanding that opinions and stories and all that can change on the fly. And yours should be more malleable, especially when you get a lot more stories into your brain, as it were,
Mm-hmm.
and using those media literacy skills in order to then process, like, okay, I've read the quote from the guy who perpetrated this incident. I've read the news report. I've listened to 3 people talk about it. I'm ready to have my opinion on it. And that's really what I hoped people would do, taking the weekly cooldown into their ear holes. Um, and I think that's what really drove me to do that. So far as games as a whole go, I just I love everything about the craft of video games,
Mm-hmm.
especially the writing and the stories, that it just keeps me coming back and back and back and back and back to see what people are doing, what people are creating.
Me and Corey actually had this conversation about what do video game news look like in the future because of the younger generation.
Hmm.
Is there still a generation out there who will be writing these stories, who be doing these pieces, going to developers or indie developers and having certain discussions? Because I think it's kind of hard to talk to a high school student or even someone that's getting out of high school going into college who loves video games but don't really experience the variety and the diverseness of games to be able to have multiple conversations. Like you could I wish that some Fortnite players would challenge their viewers on what they think and talk about video games, because
Absolutely.
if even though they're watching you play and stuff and enjoying and learning tricks and stuff, how can you talk, like, can you actually have a discussion about why Mega Man, if you think about it, is a emotional journey because of a robot with these human ethics about themselves? Can you have that like discussion on stream with them? Now there's be some kids who don't understand any of that, but I'm like, do you know what ethics and morals are and why they play a part in games, and why in Fortnite those are kind of those are not they don't play a part in what this game is about, but why they are important into
Hmm.
Call of Duty or The Last of Us 2, a part 2, or even like in the Mario Brothers series. Like, do you feel guilty stumbling on a good one? Like, the conversation could go to various places and stuff. But I wonder, will we continue to see that, or is it just people coming on a podcast or writing something on Metacritic or just saying this game sucks, don't play it, or you got to jump 15 times to get a box and it's stupid, and all these old mechanics? Like what in your opinion, what do you see the younger generation of going forth with gaming journalism?
I don't want to count out the younger generation on their cognitive abilities, their empathy, and ultimately their morals. Because from what I've seen, they are able to challenge us on some of our, and I mean millennials, as opposed to Gen Z or Zoomers, if you want to call them that. I don't. Um, but what I see from Gen Z and like people like my younger sister is that they are able to um, capture the kind of emotions, the morals, and so on about any kind of media they consume,
Hmm.
about the world around them, even. So I think one thing I've always said about games is that they allowed me a way to kind of apply certain feelings to the real world and apply certain knowledge to the real world. Puzzle games kind of give you that deep critical thinking skills, like, oh, you have to multiply this by this plus that, da, da, da. Like math
Yeah.
skills, cognitive thinking skills, things that keep the brain kind of whirring.
Hmm.
um, Anything that has a puzzle in it is always really good. But then the story, if there is a story, um, helps you to think about the world at large, right? So one game I kind of use, even though it's kind of people like to cite it for the wrong reasons, is Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid has a really robust story, a very long story. There's a
Hmm.
lot of political stuff in it, but there's also a lot of history in it. And the history can also show kind of the morals of the characters and why they're doing certain things, and how the fictional characters interact with actual real world history is always really interesting, and it can say a lot to one's character how they perceive it as well. So they talk about the civil wars in certain parts of Africa, all kinds of things in Metal Gear Solid, and depending on your idea of what how that affected the world and how that affected Raiden, who was your character, who was in a child soldier in that civil war, it can mean a lot to you. And certain people like to fixate on the war part because they're like gun nuts and dude bros, and
Which is funny. That it's funny that you mentioned that because, AKA gun nuts, dude bros and stuff. It's funny that you mentioned that them want to talk about war and mentioning their political beliefs and stuff like that. But when there's games that have done with war that's in the fantasy stuff, like if I put out Mass Effect, they don't care nothing about that because it's not that kind of war or political
mhm, it's not
attention
in your
that,
face.
right. But it's just like, why is it something that once it touch politics or something governmental or something like that, you want to go all out, but you don't want to touch on maybe a war and Fire Emblem.
Right. It's guns, right? People like guns. But in any case, I think I was going on a bit of a tangent there, but I think
This is 1v1. We always do that.
I think when it comes to games journalism in the future, I think that the younger generation might show us a little bit more
Hmm.
than what we've already been exploring, because we are kind of paving the way for what games journalism is now and what
Yes.
it may be in the future. So we're not just reporting on new releases, um, developers doing this. We're also reporting on things in the community, sexual harassment, physical harassment in some cases, how much political leanings of certain companies, and also focusing on the world at large. So there's a lot of people who kind of look at Tencent right now as a giant gaming company right now, a company that's buying up more than just video games too. They own tons of stuff, but they are looking at them as a gaming company and also looking at their potential beliefs about Hong Kong and how the riots in Hong Kong, excuse me, the protests in Hong Kong might be affecting Tencent's decisions on bringing certain games to China, or how they broadcast certain games, as we saw with Blizzard and the
Hmm.
what was it, Hearthstone stream, I believe. So I think as we move forward with more worldly kind of gaming journalism, we'll see more of that and maybe something brand new that we didn't even think to report with the next generation.
But isn't it funny that people were, and this is going to sound so weird, so just run with me with this one as always.
Rolling with you.
Um, um, how how people reacted during Gamergate, aka that whole story, and when everything came out, it
Hmm.
was just like really nothing because people didn't know the facts, and then people want to talk about sexual harassment and harassment in any form, and people want to act out and say the things, and it's just like, hold on, wait a minute, you can't say that a developer is wrong for something when you might have been the same person accusing a girl that we don't even know the full story that was going on,
Hmm.
that you were saying stuff about her and being disgusting with that. So it's just it's kind of weird seeing that Gamergate was something where a lot of people had their opinions about the in the public view about just a small thing, and now you want to focus on it and get and make sure that things are right because it's from a well-known developer. You get what I'm saying?
I do. And for what it's worth, I think I kind of blacked out during Gamergate because my memory of it is so spotty. And I think it was because I remember reading some of the comments people were having about it. And I was just being like, I want nothing to do with this. I don't ever want to hear the word Gamergate again. This is gross. I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. But every time it kind of resurfaces, in one way or another, it makes me think that that was like the pivotal change in the gaming community. We got to see some of the worst people crawl out from the depths of the internet to share their shitty opinions, and we got to see them in their full gluey, gooey slime man glory, and it was usually the men. And it pains me every time I visit a comment section or a reply section on Twitter about any game news, and I see people who are just like, "Oh, another woman," or "Oh, another black. Stop putting politics in my video." Fuck you, guy. Okay, politics is in everything. You cannot do that. Politics is ingrained in video games, and if you think, and by the way, skin color and sexual orientation, gender, these things are not political, right? They're a signifier of identity, that an identity is not something that is or should be political. Human rights is not political.
Right.
Um, but if you want to talk about how we should be funding the library, that's politics. And if that's in your video game, then that's politics. And if you don't want those politics in your game, fine by me. I would love to not talk about funding a library.
But the thing
But
about this, but think about it is just that you people don't like. Oh well, I don't want to talk about politics and funding the library. But you're grinding for 15 hours to make a sword,
right,
or
it's the
15 hours to build something in your Sim City.
Mhm.
And it's just like you can't say that you don't want something when you are doing it.
I recognize that a lot of people play video games as escapism. They don't they
Mm.
the stressors of the real world are too much for them. They don't want to be in this world, so they go to another one. But they do so without recognizing the influence that the real world has on their video game.
Right.
In some way, shape, or form, your escapism is just you bending reality just ever so slightly so that you don't have to deal with one or two stressors that are in your life. And yeah, they might be gone for the next couple of hours while you're playing a video game, but they're still present somewhere in all those little ones and zeros that are making up your Minecraft server. So you can't escape it. It's
It's
impossible.
it's one thing, and this is across video games, from any genre that you play. It's the one thing that no one cannot deny is concentration.
Hmm.
concentration is the one big key thing of video games, and it's not because of you got to focus on your task at hand. You could play Call of Duty for all you want, and that would equal the same amount of me making music in a music maker program on PlayStation 2.
Sure.
Or like if you just like trying to hear little things in the Hellblade, I'm trying to hear the song going in Elite Beat Ages and make sure I make the right pop and move. And it's just like in any game that you play, you gotta concentrate to get the full context of why you're doing the stuff that
That
you're
is correct.
doing, and to have that escapism. You might be stressed out from work and everything, and feel like you couldn't concentrate because you were so just out of it. But then you start playing the game and you get that level of concentration back because you want to make progress, or you feel like in order for me to have my goal accomplished, I gotta focus, I gotta concentrate on what's on hand.
And that's true of a lot of things, though. I mean, if you're not concentrating on a video game, you're concentrating on homework, on actual work.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're cleaning your room, and you're concentrating on something, and it all comes back to like the cognitive works of the mind. If you're not playing the game in earnest, if you're not giving it your attention, then of course you're going to find it lacking or boring or too
Mm-hmm.
political or something like that. If you're skipping cutscenes, you're not you're literally diverting your attention away from it.
Did you see that post that someone and I actually was talking about it today before this recording, that someone just like about skipping cutscenes. Do you skip them and stuff? I'm like, I only skip cutscenes if I'm doing a replay. Like if
Hmm.
it's the second go round and I got everything, I'll do it. But if it's been like 4 or 5 months and I feel like I want to revisit a game, I'll revisit it and won't skip a cutscene. And it became a debate about that. I'm like, there are times that you have to skip a cutscene. Definitely if a game takes a long time to load, and
Right.
you are forced to watch a cutscene
Yeah.
all over again after you die.
Or even like the Death. I've been playing a lot of Death Stranding, and Death Stranding has
Mhm.
these little mini cutscenes every time you deliver something. That's annoying to me. I don't like that. So I skip every one of them. If I'm doing like standard cargo and there's no story cutscenes coming up or anything
Mhm.
like that, I'm just like mashing A and B because I don't care. I've seen it before. They thank me. I get the likes. I'm out. Like that's it. But if it's like my first playthrough, sometimes my second one if it's been a short enough or a long enough time, or even not if it's been a couple of weeks and I'm like, actually I want to play again, and I go back and I'll watch cutscenes because I I enjoy the story so much in video games that I feel like, okay, I need to make sure I'm watching the cutscene. I need to look at the mannerisms. I need to watch facial expressions and really listen to the words, listen to the delivery of the lines, um, for various reasons, and but mostly so that I'm not missing anything. And again, to your point, that's concentration. I want to take in as much as I can so that when I go and I speak to someone else about it, I know what I'm talking about and I have some backup, some proof.
Yes. And I think that's why when we read stories, whether it's news, whether it's a game, or even fan fiction in a sense, like there are things that we have to take notice of,
Hmm.
and depending on, and the reason why I bring fan fiction up is because there have been people who have written some out there fan fiction
Sure.
about video games and stuff, and it could be like, oh, this should be actually be DLC of a game, or some of them might be like, this is a little bit too hot to
Hmm.
handle,
Hmm.
and wherever. The first thing people go to is towards Sonic the Hedgehog and all of that
Those are
stuff.
fun.
But I'm just like, no, you pretty much could take anything and literally uh spoof it or actually make it something you you feel like this should be part of the world, but it's not, but I'm going to make it part of the world and
Right.
make you feel like that is canon.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been trying to do this for a while, but I've had some other ideas for podcasts that I've wanted to make more creative. And one of
Mm-hmm.
them, I play a lot of Final Fantasy 14, and I've role played on there because I like writing. I love writing. I've always been a writer, and kind of making a collaborative story with other people. That's a lot of fun to me. So I've always done role playing, but I decided at one point it didn't really take off, but I decided I would get some people together and we would try to do what was essentially like whose line is it anyway,
Mm-hmm.
but in the Final Fantasy world. And for a while we had something working there and it was a lot of fun and it was very improv-y and we had like our own little characters and a little story building. It ended up not really panning out. Um, but it's fun to do that. It's fun to not only take in someone else's world. So in the case of like Final Fantasy, you're taking in Square Enix and their work, and you're taking all that in and taking in all the information they give you, and then you're building your own little Lego character on top of it, right?
Yes.
You're giving it your own little flair. You're giving it a character to work with, and then other people see that and they're like, I want to get in on what he's doing, and then they, build their own little Lego character, and you have a whole world to work with, and you can still do that with single player games, like you said with fan fiction. You can start up a whole cool writing, a whole written prose that makes life worth living.
I so I actually did a fan fiction like spoof story with Samus. So Samus ended up somehow landing on Earth in some form or fashion, and she landed in Walmart. So she parked her ship in Walmart, and somehow she ended up meeting Mega Man and Vivi from uh, Final Fantasy 9. So they go on this adventure, and Dr. Wily, and there's two other characters that I put, but they're getting no. It was Jason from Friday the 13th. Uh, it was another character, and it was Dr. Raleigh and stuff. So I had them like they was like chasing Samus and stuff around. I had to post it. And at one point, I had Samus and them go into a shoe store, and Jason, he was getting close to the place and stuff. And so Samus yells out 75% off on shoes. And for some reason, she was loud enough for all these women to come and run into the shoe store. So they knocked down Jason and ran over Jason.
That's a lot of
and,
fun.
and it was just like it's such a cliche joke, but I was just like I was thinking about it. So they was able to escape that. Jason didn't kill nobody. He didn't. Uh, but they ran into a theater. And so uh, somehow one of Dr. Wiley's robots got loose, and they started attacking Samus and everything.
Mhm.
Somehow Mega Man was able to touch that robot and get his powers and everything. So it just goes off from there. So I had each of them do something, and it was just a funny, goofy thing. I'll have to find it, see if I can post it. But it was kind of like that fan fiction that was so nutty, so out
Right.
there, no one would think about it. And like this is kind of fun and
Yeah.
stuff, you know.
When people really like something, it can inspire them to do things within that universe, and
Mhm.
in a lot of cases, things outside of that universe. Um, Hideo Kojima in particular is not shy of showing off his favorite movies or his favorite influences by sticking them in the world somewhere.
Yes.
Um, Metal Gear Solid 2, we get Iroquois Pliskin, which is just a reference to Escape from New York, a 1980s movie, I believe. Um,
Yes.
and then I'm pretty sure it was the 1980s movie.
80s or beginning of 90s, yeah, but I know who you're talking about. No, I know what you're talking about.
And then in Death Stranding, as I'm still playing it, every time you get these little like memory chips, they contain some little data from the world before everything happened. And a lot of it is just his favorite albums or something like that, or his favorite movie from the 80s or something. And a lot of it's like American Hollywood stuff. And he's not afraid to do that. He's not afraid to say, yeah, this is where I got the influence for all of my works. This is where some of my best ideas come from.
and
And it's
and
just
that's
nice to have that.
and for people who don't know that, I keep talking about Snatcher, one of his earlier projects. And Snatcher was a take on the Harrison Ford movie. That was with the cyborgs and stuff. Um, not Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Gosling did the sequel to it. Uh, Blade Runner. Um,
Yes,
Blade
of
Runner
course.
was a Snatcher was a take on Blade Runner, which was on take of do electric sheep like the dream or something like that, or
Hmm.
electric robots like the dream of sheep or something like that. Um, and like if people didn't know that Kojima made something like Snatcher, you wouldn't understand why he creates these worlds and writes these stories and stuff.
Hmm.
And I think that Kojima could be a successful movie director if he wanted to. I think the pitfall would be that you can't make it Final Fantasy Spirits Within. You got to make it something on the level of still in the Final Fantasy series. So of course everybody know where I'm going, but it's like Final Fantasy Advent Children, um,
Hmm.
where it is part of the Final Fantasy 7 kind of thing, but it's a movie that you can watch and understand, and it has this video game feel to it
I
and
don't see.
stuff.
I think he would lean into kind of like live action with CGI stuff. I
Mhm.
think he really wants to kind of, at least for once in his life, step away from motion capture and just film the people as they are. And I think with Metal Gear Solid 5 and with Death Stranding, that was him testing the limits of that and
And
seeing how close he could get to it.
it's very weird because if you think about it, Quantum Break from Remedy, the
Hmm.
little TV parts of it, I could see Kojima doing something like that, like
Sure.
these small little things. Because without a shadow, of I feel like Quantum Break is better than Control in a
Hmm.
sense, and gameplay wise. But Control kind of has a memorable story. But I love the TV stuff that Remedy did in Quantum Break, and
They're very
if
good at that.
yes, and if like Kojima could get to that kind of level, I think he would be very successful with it. You know, it don't have to be on a level of Quibi or anything, but I would love to see what he would create in that space because
Hmm.
sorry to bring up Nintendo, Nintendo knows how to make shorts. And
Sure.
the shorts are enjoyable. Of course, Smash is its own thing, but I'm like, you go back and you look at that Pikmin short. You go back and look at that Star Fox
Hmm.
Zero anime, and it's just like Nintendo knows what they're doing when they're making some kind of entertainment for people to look at.
Right. Absolutely.
So, we spoke earlier about Metacritic. And by the time you guys see this, the news has already been out that Metacritic is implementing a 36-hour delay for user reviews. So you gotta wait for a day and a half to leave a message or a review after you had a chance to play the game.
Hmm.
This is a good step, but a lot of people feel like there needs to be more. What if just from hearing a little bit of tidbit, because you might actually cover it on the weekly cooldown. What are your thoughts about that?
So initially, I think it's good. It's a step in the right direction simply because having a game be review bombed before it's out is, I think, the worst thing we as a society can do to anything.
Hmm.
I think it's nice to have you users especially wait until it's out. Simply because if they can then read the reviews that are coming in from the actual critics, Maybe it might help change their tune, and maybe they won't be as visceral in their attack on the game.
Yes.
That being said, though, I do also maybe we need to, what's the word? Maybe we need to kind of ditch the entire scoring system for reviews as a whole. Simply because I think when people see numbers, they are less inclined to read the actual reviews, which is why we get review bombing in the first place. You get review bombing because people are downvoting it and
And
making it shitty in the first place.
PC Gamer did that same thing, and there was a problem.
Oh, was there?
Yeah, for a while, PC Gamer had for reviews, they got rid of scores and
Mm-hmm.
literally only put out the work, and people complained about that. They felt like if you're going to review something, you gotta give us something that is going to, um, that's gonna satisfy us if we should pick it or not. Because
Yeah.
uh, and it's weird because the thing about it was just like even if you review a product without a grade or a number or anything, and I still find it funny that people hate math but always want a number from
All right.
somebody else to make an argument. Um, that people just don't understand why reviews are written, why the context of helping you make a decision if you're going to purchase the game or not. Because if a company thinks that they sold you on showing you a CGI trailer and you know nothing about it, and then you get that product and you're upset.
Mm-hmm.
Reviews are reviews help you make that decision because it includes the things that you may like or things that you may dislike.
Right.
So you need
And
to take notice of that. Go ahead.
and to that point, it makes there's more substance in reading the thoughts of the author rather
Mhm.
than looking at the number, finding the key bias points that you have, and then being like, great, I won't get it. It goes back to the media literacy thing I was talking about. Being able to read the review entirely and then saying, you know what, this author makes a good point about XYZ thing. I don't think it's for me. Or saying, you know, the author makes a good point about this, but he does say it still has this in it. I'll give it a try. Or being able to read it through and saying, yeah, but I love this game, so I'm going to get it anyway. Right? So being able to formulate an opinion based on what you're reading, not just like, oh, they gave it 2.5 stars. They said everything's bad. I'm out. No, you should be able to read it in its entirety without the numbers or the 2.5 or 81 or whatever it is, and then come to an informed decision based on what you're reading.
And because a lot of people who know me like just like Eddie's Nintendo bias, and yeah, at times I am. I will buy pretty much everything Nintendo puts out because I know the quality that I'm going to get from Nintendo. If
Mm-hmm.
it's good, bad, average, or whatever, it is what it is. But I know that Nintendo has a history of bringing out a line of quality products that not only change the industry but change the way on how we look and play games and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's not a lot of developers and other publishers that are doing that. It's not a knock against them or anything. I just put out my Last of Us Part Two review for Boss Rush Games, and I I I go into the things that a lot of other people didn't talk about, and I kind of see that game as a wild western versus the modern world,
Mm-hmm.
where where at like the start of the game with Ellie, it feels like a Wild West story, but she loses that Wild West kind of idea and gets into this modern setting of killing people where Abby is like she's in this modern world, she knows what's going on, she sees all of these people, and she goes in with kind of like this brute force, which is kind of like the western style of things that you was up front, you're gonna fight it out, or you know, you shoot it out or whatever. And it's just like a lot of people are focusing on the revenge aspect, not focusing on how the roles switch from where they came from. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like yes, it is about the premise has a revenge feel to it, but it's something else. And I wrote this and I put a score on it, and it just came out, and waiting to get a lot more feedback. But it's just like I hope people don't skip everything that I have to say and just look at the score and be like, okay, yeah, the game is late. The game's been out for a while, and this is my decision if I still want to get it or not. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the last with this Metacritic thing, it sucks in a sense because The Last of Us Part Two got its unfair share of criticism
Mm-hmm.
and with the review bombs, and that may have been the point of Sony stopping comics from Twitter, from people saying anything, and just all the controversy that came along. And it's weird that I'm like, why is The Last of Us Part Two, which is a great game, getting this review bomb, and people are saying these small little things, and it's almost to equal the same level that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild got of just being review bombed for something that they didn't even play, that didn't really do anything.
For being different.
Yeah, for being different, and it's very weird, And I'm not saying that this is going to stop it, because I think my thing is, who is going to wait a day and a half to type 3 words and
That is
rate
true.
it 0?
That
Like,
is also true. Yeah.
what mental capacity people have to do that? That doesn't make
Well,
sense.
never count out a vindictive bitch because they will do whatever it takes to get their point across, right? To get
But
their little dig in. They'll
but
do
is
whatever
it
it takes.
but is it vindictive, or is it being part of the crowd?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like I said, some people are not interested in reading for the full context.
Hmm.
So they see a little bit of The Last of Us 2, they see a leaked thing, they make a snap decision, oh, this is going to be a bad game because of XYZ reason. So I'm just going to go and review bomb it right now because I don't like this game based on this one thing that I've seen. When in fact, what you should be doing, even if you did see the leaks and spoilers and all that, is take a moment to wait and read other people's comments, read a story or two about it, see what the developer is saying, and then come to a decision about how you want to handle your hatred or hopefully lack thereof um, for this piece of media. It's terrifying to think that when I put something out and I give you like a snippet of it and maybe it says something bad about your favorite author, that you would just snap to a judgment and say, "Oh no, he's bad. He said this one thing, and I didn't listen to the entire 30 minutes of the conversation, but he did say this. So fuck that guy." It's
Oh,
it's it's scary to think about.
I got in that when said that I despise the 360. I got some vocal stuff about that, and the way that I did a bad day review for Grand Theft Auto 5, and I got some vocal stuff about that, and I was happy to get that because it was just like, oh, someone noticed me, someone took
Oh
notice
yeah,
of my work,
actually,
because
I'd welcome some negative comments. Like, bring it on.
because it's just like, okay, so you did pay attention, or you did take notice for something to click in you to anger,
Hmm.
and that's good. From my perspective, that's good, because you didn't do it out of you read it, you came to a conclusion, and you felt that something was being attacked, but you know the reasons now why it was being attacked. You
Hmm.
disagree with them, but you now know for you to respond.
Right. Exactly.
Uh,
Well, at
And
least you would hope so.
Yes, and I feel like the people who review Bob the Last of Us Part Two and even Breath of the Wild, it was just like, are you doing this because you feel like you're not able to say anything once Sony and not so much Nintendo, but since Sony kind of blocked your way to say anything, whether it's positive or negative, they blocked you for saying anything, and now you can't voice your opinion
Hmm.
to make others mad or to get into a video game fight that's not really there to
I think
really jump into.
I think some people don't recognize the difference between freedom of speech and freedom of consequence
Hmm.
because they're not the same thing. So
Yes.
if you've been living your life up to this point by review bombing every game that you don't like, then congratulations, this is your consequence now. You get to be censored for a day and a half because you can't behave yourself. You can't be trusted to not only give a decent review, but also give a review about something you've actually played, about something you've experienced. And because you can't be trusted, then we as Metacritic, as a private entity, have to censor you for at least a day and a half. So
And
that's it.
and it's going to feel like it's like not so much Facebook, that is what it is, but if we look at Twitter and you see people's comments of what they like and people jumping on to hate on what you like, you
Yeah.
have the power to block them, mute them, and if it gets to a point where you need to report them, you can report them. So the more negative you get, the more that you're limiting yourself to say your negative thing. You have that
Hmm.
First Amendment right to say it, but the consequences is that you're going to continue to limit yourself. And if it gets to a point where you can't say nothing, because you can't really go on YouTube, your channel could get reported for something about that.
Right.
You know, you really have a limited space. So if you want to drown yourself out, there's the ocean that you could just put yourself in. And
Exactly.
you know, so it's interesting that they did it because I guess Paper Mario was getting review bomb. Not certain about that, but I'm like, you guys should have implemented this when a lot of games were getting review bomb for no apparent reason.
It is a little late, but I do think that with a decision like censorship,
Mm-hmm.
you have to take it a little seriously. You have to weigh the pros and cons. Something I've learned, and I think someone said it in regards to a conversation I was having about voice actors, is that people aren't going to be mad either way. So the camp that was don't review bomb, it sucks when you do that, would be mad if Metacritic just allowed this to go on longer.
Yes.
And now instead of that, the camp that is I want to review bomb is going to be mad. So someone's always going to be mad. You got to mitigate your potential losses if you'll have any. I doubt anyone's going to stop using Metacritic because of this.
Mm-hmm.
There's a billion other new humans being born every day. Someone will use it. It's fine. Metacritic will be fine. Games will be fine. These sad gamers will just have to find a new way to be sad.
Do you think that first party and even Steam, Epic Games, do you think they should include a app on their system for Metacritic to for you to connect to say something? Because you can do reviews on these stores if you want and say whatever you want to say about the game and rate it. Do you think Metacritic should be like an app on yours on a system or even on your phone, and in order for you to do it, it has to connect to one of your services and recognize that you have the game in full and that you have played a portion of it so you can give it a fair review?
That
because
would that would be a good idea. I could see that working.
because I feel like, yeah, a day and a half to just say this game sucks is not good enough. Like I feel like you need 45 to 50% of the game complete before you can say something. So you can own it. I don't know how GameFly does their business or even the Redbox, but you have to literally have it on in some form and be able to say something. And if the app could recognize that, okay, you have played 50% of the game. Now you can say whatever you want to say if you like it or not. Is it Do you think that that's fair because it's forcing that person that you have to put in work before you say this sucks?
Well, I think it would be fair to the developers, if no one else, simply because they put in the work to make the game. The least you could do before you have an opinion about it is
Mm,
play their work. It's experience their work before you have something to say about it. So I think that would be very fair, and it would help mitigate the kind of responses you would see from Metacritic
mm,
or from any place with a review area. That being said, again, going back to the people are going to be mad thing, I can guarantee that there's going to be a lot of people who are like, "Oh, they're censoring me." Woo, boo hoo. It has potential for a lot of flare up, and um, I mean, it would eventually become the norm if you stick to your guns. So people would have to do it eventually. So it's not a terrible idea, and actually I would support it simply because it would really help to hopefully give some actual credence to the work that is being criticized rather than just someone being mad that there's a girl in their game. And
who
that's
happens to be a lesbian or just a girl,
transgender,
transgender.
anything.
So, um, well, let's let's touch on this last thing because I mentioned the cyberpunk thing, uh, and the trans character, or the creative character. Um, cyberpunk got pushed back to November, uh, and I do wonder, is it going to be a big deal that people make it, even though you're not barely going to see your player because it's in first person?
Well, they did mention, I believe, that there will be like full nudity sex scenes.
Hmm.
And as I was saying before the show, that's usually not something I think people should shy away from, simply because I think that we should be way less desensitized as a society to sex than we are. Simply because, and not just because it makes people kind of prudish, but also because it just makes us kind of uh, sensitive, I think, in a way, to the slightest bit of flesh showing.
Well,
Um,
this is it's to me it's comedic versus seriousness in a sense
right.
because comedic is the Ballad of Gay Tony DLC,
Whatever.
right? But the seriousness is the romantic relationship that you create in Mass Effect.
Right,
Uh,
absolutely.
and so it's just like showing nudity and love scenes and stuff like that. It only works when it's serious. You're not gonna have no hentai kind of craziness
Yeah,
or something in the
it's
game.
not going to be porn.
Right.
They're going to use it for some reason to push the story or some kind of artistic reason. It's never gratuitous. And even when it is, in the case of women, it's only gratuitous. So
Hmm.
you kind of have to have that balance. So is it going to be super sexy all the time, or is it going to be like artistic and beautiful and maybe a little hint of sexy, like just a little bit for the one person who needs it to be sexy. But to Cyberpunk's point, I think that they are trying to be somewhat serious in their depictions of sex, and gender,
Hmm.
and having romance scenes and stuff like that. However, they are taking it too far and not far enough at the same time. um, they seem to want people to be able to have a gender expression and to have genitals be viewable and have sliders for said genitals. And that's fine and good. Cool, awesome. You want to have a big noodle, you can have a big noodle. But um, in the same respect, it seems like they are trying to pander in some way to the trans community, and it's not working in their favor. So for, obviously, I am not trans, but I've spoken to a few trans people about it, and they all kind of say the same thing in that, yeah, they see Cyberpunk, they see CD Projekt Red trying to give some kind of gender expression, but it goes too far in that you can choose exactly what you want and also how big it is and all that, but it doesn't go far enough in that it boils down their gender, their identity, to just the genitals.
which
um
is weird because I feel like that is such, and this is no disrespect to the trans community, gay community, straight community. This is no disrespect to your sexual preference, but that is a small portion to what this game is about. And I think that's why I say I'm like, if most of this game is going to be on first person, unless you're walking across a mirror to see yourself, I don't think it's really going to matter on how you create your character. Cutscenes might be different. And I'm not saying that I fully don't know how the game is going to play out. But
mhm.
if you are dressed in a certain manner and you are always in first person mode, you never go to third person or you never do a 2D side kind of action thing, everything that you created for your character does not matter because you're mostly shooting guns, you're mostly hacking with your hands. You're not doing a butt attack, so your butt doesn't come into view and you just flying, or you're not knocking them out with your junk or anything, or your fake breast is spitting out acid. Like, you're not really going to see those body parts or stuff play any factor. My assumption is that if you pass a mirror or you pass some kind of reflection or a puddle or something, that's the only way that your customized creation uh really plays a part.
Well, again, to them though, it's less about how they look
Hmm.
and more about that their gender is being boiled down to just the sex aspect. So, for example, you can look. I might be getting this slightly wrong, but as I understand it, you can be a male character and have some androgyny to
Hmm.
your look, but you are not a trans man or something like that.
Yes.
So like if you want to be called a woman in the game will not do that for you. It will call you he, it will use he, him pronouns. So I think that's what they're kind of getting at is that the CD Projekt Red has said, yeah, you can do whatever you want, total expression, except people are going to misgender you. So it's not only about what they see in the game, what is represented in the game, but also like how they wish to be addressed. And for a game that tries to touch on that subject, unlike other games with character creation where you only get one of the binary and that's it. So if you want to be called she, you have to play as a female character, as opposed to a character creator where you can look somewhat androgynous. Um, it sucks to kind of have it's kind of like having a platter of food and it's free, but you can only have one. You can only have one piece and then the rest is going into the trash. Sorry, you can't have everything you want. Boo hoo. And in a way I get what you're saying too, in that if you're not seeing the entire character, then like make it look like a frog for all I care. But in another way, I understand that people have a gender, especially identity, is very complex, and it can be hard to remove yourself sometimes, even if it's just in a video game. You know what I mean? It can be hard to know that you're not getting the full extent of your gender identity
Mm.
replicated into your video game, despite having most of the tools to do that. And
It
it's just
it's
not there.
and some of it, I think you got to realize that the dialogue and the voice recording, all of that is that all of that stuff is done and programmed in. So I don't know if with CD Project Red would have to do some kind of patch in order for all of that to change with that data and
Sure.
everything. So it's and like I said, it's not a knock to CD Project Red. It's not a knock to the player. I think whatever you create and whatever you that person is going to be called into the game, don't let it bother you in a sense. We all want representation in games. We still fight for representation in games. But there are sometimes that a company has an artistic view and they want to create what they want to create and feel like this is something that we made for you guys to experience and maybe discuss about and everything. Because if you talk more about the moment, like in Mass Effect, you talk more about the moments than you talk about you being a film shop or anything. Or you talk about Saints Row 3 and you talk about the moments, but you may add your character. Yeah, like, yeah, I shot up a whole building with this curly octopus wig on my head. Uh Even though I play as a married character, I got on some disco boots and stuff, and I did all of that. It's going to be the moments that you talk about than what your character is to do those moments.
That's true, but I think a lot of for a lot of people, um, to enjoy that moment, they
Mm,
would like to be as fully formed as they would like, especially if you're going to have the option of character creation. They want to be
yes,
as fully formed and as represented and see whatever beauty they need to see within that character for them to feel whatever it is they need to feel.
but
Granted, there are people, of course, who use the character creator as like I don't know, a monster factory creation. So
yeah,
you can what it ultimately what it comes down to is, again, I would say media literacy, being able to kind of enjoy the product either for what it's worth or enjoying the product but still having some really sharp criticism about it. You can still enjoy something. I love Resident Evil, but it has some terrible non-factors regarding race and black people. There's one black person you can play as in the entire game, and then you never see one again. So, I mean,
and
it's
you it and I think you gotta recognize that this is a from a company that is not in America, who
right.
view race and things differently than what we see. If we want a zombie game, we have Dead by Daylight, or we have Dying Light. We have all of the stuff that American companies have made. Resident Evil 5 just tends to be one that it was placed in Africa. It has one black female character and never used again. I'm like, do any of you guys even know what the full stories of the Resident Evil games?
Right.
You guys are, oh, there's no race representation, but ooh, Chris Redfield looks sexy in a sailor outfit.
There it again, I think it's back to kind of being able to enjoy something and also
Mhm.
having the criticism about it. I love
Yeah.
Resident Evil to death, and I have some very sharp criticisms about how they handle race and gender, about how they handle the zombie narrative as a whole, and ultimately, it doesn't take away, at least in my experience, to have those criticisms. Some people, unfortunately, or in their case, fortunately, maybe they don't think they're missing out on anything. They can't separate the two sometimes. They have very sharp criticisms that make the game unenjoyable. And I say more power to them. I won't, I think, argue people about their enjoyment of something because I first of all, I don't like when people come into my space and they're like, "No, this sucked." I'm like, "Okay, well, fuck you, I guess." But what I don't want to happen is for us to have some kind of disagreement based on liking the game or disliking a game. What I want to have the conversation over is what criticisms you have for it, and then we
Mm-hmm.
can discuss that instead, because it I don't care if you liked it. It doesn't matter to me if you liked it. What I want to know is, what criticisms do you have? How can they make it better? Maybe we can rope you in, right? So
Or give example of games that have done the same thing that have done it better and
absolutely.
everything. And once you are a gamer or a player that could get to that level, because sometimes there are people who they want to say something, and then I'm like, okay, what game or publisher or developer have you uh have done the same thing that you could actually provide an example of when it's done right? And if you can't do that, it's just it kind of hurts your, I don't want to say argument, it kind of hurts the discussion of
Hmm.
being fair, because it's just like you hate something but can't give me a example when something that you hate was done better,
It could
you
be
know.
that there hasn't been an example yet, and I would say in the case of representation, we are still lacking in some cases. Good trans, gay, lesbian, black representation. And maybe it just doesn't exist yet. And that's the reason why people are like, no, I'm not going to play it. Why? I don't know. What's a, what's like an actor on the same level as like Norman Reedus? I don't know actors very well. Why couldn't Idris Elba be Sam? Let's put it that way, right?
Hmm.
Like, is the story any different if Sam is black?
No.
I don't think so. So in that case, some people might say, you know what, I don't want to play another game with a white protagonist, and I would say, fuck you, Kojima's awesome. No, um, I would say like, fine, if that's what you don't want, if that's what you want, then we'll, hopefully the gaming
I mean,
world will try to
but
do
then
better next time.
and then that's when you challenge them. Then I'm like, what are you going to play then? Because if your library is not filled with
Well, that,
various diversity
yes,
of games, you just saying that you're not going to play a game with another white person not being a lead, that doesn't do nothing. Because think about it, it's just like, okay, you're not going to play that, but you're still not going to play Ikaruga.
that
You're
was a
still not.
that was a pretty bad example. I agree.
No, but it's actually a good example, because it's just like, even though you're not gonna play this bright protagonist, here's some Japanese and indie games. Here's some games from Africa. Here's some experiences that across from the world that the indie space are providing that you have not even touched or even thought about. Will you now start playing that? And if your answer is no, then it doesn't matter what
That is
bright
true.
protagonist in the game
Hmm.
that you play for, you still are not going to play certain games that can replace that,
That is true of some people. Yep, I would agree.
you know. So I try to play everything. I'm bad at not playing sports games because,
Who
and
wants to
I
do that? Just go outside.
but I've literally given my reason that I have played sports games and not arcade sports. I have tried to play Madden and drum my tenor, and I have fell asleep with the controller in my hand because I'm too relaxed and I'm kind of not bored, but it's just like I don't give
It's
that
not always
adrenaline rush in that
engaging.
group. Right. And so it's just like, I don't care if you beat me or anything. That has no significance to me. If we are doing some crazy stuff, or we just happen, because like NFL Blitz, of course, that's arcadey, and I could talk all the junk I want to. But if the score is like 57-3, then my junk don't really matter. It's
Hmm.
it's gonna be those moments that, oh dang it, I was like, and I'm gonna have that victory because now I'm making progress because I made the touchdown, and now my three is like a 10-point lead or something. I mean, my thing is 10 points, but I'm still getting crushed at it. And the trash talking is to be sarcastic in a fun way, because
Hmm.
I know myself is going to get whooped. I'm not good at this game, but it's playing against another person just to laugh and have fun. That doesn't stop me from playing sports games or anything. I could play NBA Live all day long and literally get better at it if I want to. But I got to fight the urge of falling asleep.
Hmm.
And that's my only reason. I don't hate sports games. That is my only reason why I don't pick them up.
I say just go outside. You put on some roller skates. You got NHL. Put on a helmet. Get dang football. You got Madden. There you go. Get a basketball. Go to a place and dribble it. I don't know nothing about sports, so.
I all I care for is having a double dutch competition, and I used to love. I played double dutch like faith. Back in the day, I used to play double dutch faithfully, turning the rope, jumping. I don't care what people thought about me. I was just like, I love doing this activity.
Mhm.
Of course, it's with girls and stuff, but I'm like, I love jumping in, doing the count, seeing how long I could go. I'm like, because it was fun to me. I didn't care about the gender of who was doing it or who was set for it. It was like, give me the other rope. You want double dutch, you want Irish, you want singles, or you want hops. You choose on how you want to do it. Let's turn
Good
this good old
cardio.
rope. Yeah, it really is good cardio. But I'm just like, you can't get on me for playing double dutch when I'm playing volleyball with the guys and I'm spiking or jumping up doing blocks and serving and stuff. Like
Mhm.
I do the same stuff. I'm like, because that stuff is fun to me, you know.
If it's
I
fun,
I will
you should
bring up
play
my
it.
I will bring up my palm history, but I'm gonna let that be what it needs to be.
Oh,
So,
oh man.
uh, no, I was just I only I watched the dances and the choreography. I only held the jukebox and played the music and stuff. So
There you
I was
go.
the kind of like manager in a sense of the equipment and everything. But it was people that it was all the friends that I knew and had fun with, and it was about hearing that house music and the choreography that really excite me. Then the girls just dancing and everything.
Mhm.
Uh, I know if people will be like, "Yes, you're really gay." I was just like, I'm bi. So. But thank you, Kamijace, for coming on 1v1. Before we end, go ahead and plug where people can find you and everything.
Of course. So you can find the Weekly Cooldown wherever you get podcasts. Hit us up on Apple, leave it a review. Thanks. WKCooldown.com is where the podcast lives on the web. You can find me at Kamijace Gaming on Twitter or the podcast at WK Cooldown on Twitter as well.
All right. And you guys can find me on Twitter at that Retro Code. You can check out Optional Opinion on SoundCloud and other podcast apps. Check out more 1v1s at bossrushgames.com and on our YouTube page at bossrushgames. Uh, you guys can check it out every Friday. We have a lot of episodes. And also, I do recommend go check our first 1v1 where you get to know me, Corey, Jesse, Ray, and some other people who started Boss Rush Games, aka Codename NX at that time. But do really go and check out those episodes. We have a great time talking to all the content creators. And if you guys want to be on it, just hit one of us up on Twitter. And we would gladly love to have you on the 1v1 and really just have a great discussion about your content and other things, gaming or entertainment related. And with that, everybody, have a great week, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time on 1v1. Bye, everybody. And once again, thank you, Kamijace, for this.
Yeah, peace out.
Bye, everybody. Getting home from work.
No, I actually work from home, but I don't have never have time to do anything anyway. If I'm working, if I'm not working, I'm just like I can't do it. And now I'm spending too much time on Death Stranding, and I'm like I don't know what to do anymore.
How did you like it?
I'm actually enjoying it. I like the roaming. It's kind of sandboxy, but still has the action. I enjoy fucking up the mules. That's a lot of fun. And then I take their stuff and I build a road. It's real great.
Oh wow, it's so funny that so many people was against Death Stranding on PS4, and then it came to PC, and now people love it.
PC people are like, yeah, give me a game. Love it. Love a game. Any game. Love it.
Yeah, but it's weird. It's just like I would think that the Sony fan base will will attack PC gamers and nothing.
I mean, maybe they are. I don't pay attention to evil people. Oh, both my cats are in here. Hi, buddies. Do you want to
Oh.
leave? No. Oh, you just want to get up there. Okay, that's fine too.
uh, so well, it's good that you're enjoying Death Stranding. Was you always interested ever since you seen it, the first trailer?
Yeah, because I'm a Kojima fanboy, so I like anything he does ever. And so I was like, okay, what's this game about? Like, what's going on? And I still don't know what it's about, like, a year later. And I'm having a good time kind of like figuring out what's going on and uh, figuring out what the acronyms mean because he's an acronym fucking G. Just Dooms and BB and BT and all the other acronyms in the game, and I'm like, okay, what's this one mean? Okay, I got it. All right, I'm following. There's so much information, um, but it's a lot of fun, I think. It, and yeah, I just like anytime he builds like a world, I'm like, okay, I want to be in there. I want to know everything, and this one's a little more depressing than his usual stuff, but I'm
Mhm.
still into it.
It's not too political and stuff like that. Well, it has some politics.
It's like it's like almost there. I don't know. I'm not far enough in to say like what's really super political in it, but it
Mm.
seems like it has like some elements of it. And then like the American idealism that it has going on is like I'm like I don't know about this. I don't know. I don't know about this, but it does embody like the ideals that people have about America and how like if America fails, the whole world's gonna fail. I'm like, well, we'll see.
Who did the publishing? Who published it? Did Sony?
Sony, yeah,
Hmm. I wonder how does it say Sony is it computer entertainment or does it just say
yes, Sony of America. I'm not sure.
yeah SOA?
Let me see. Death Stranding publisher. Sony Interactive Entertainment.
Okay.
So that's the international one. Oh no, that's the California headquarters. No, it is the international one, but it's based in California. I don't know. I find I find the like the way that people are like, oh, America's being rebuilt, and they're all very like happy about American ideals and America this, America that. I'm like, mm-mm. No, thank you. I don't like any of that. But the Norman Reedus is good. He needs way more lines, but Norman Reedus is good. Um, and everyone else is really cool too. It's just a fun
but
game.
but level in the shower.
Um, you see his butt, so it's good enough.
uh, I feel like you're the butt expert, so I want to rate
It's not. I wasn't expecting much from Norman Reedus. He's kind of like skinny,
skinny. Okay.
so I wasn't expecting like badonk, but he's got it going on. It's cool. Kitty, shut up.
Uh, okay, well then, are you ready to go? I had to ask because I just like I wonder what Kamijace is thinking about the booty in that
As
game.
long as we see, the thing that actually bothers me is that um, there's this. I don't like censorship of sex, and the reason I don't like that is because it doesn't desensitize. I can never say that word.
Desensitized.
Desensitize us to it. It makes us really prudish to the point where like someone's freaking toe in a scene or in a movie scene or something like that is thought of as like gratuitous nudity, and I'm like, no, 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 no. First of all, that's like the human form, so like
Yes.
chill fuck out. Secondly, like you see it on yourself every day. If you have a partner, you probably see it with them sometimes. Like it's not. anything to be ashamed of, and it's not anything to censor. So like, just
Yes.
freaking show it. And so movies do it, but they do it mostly with women, and that pisses me off too because it's just sexist. Okay, if you're gonna do it to one, you gotta do it to the other. Um, and then games are always like, here's a little bit of booty. That's all you get. And I'm like, no. If you're gonna try and like push the envelope, just go all out. Which is why I try not to give Cyberpunk too much like
Leeway.
shit. No, I give them like a little leeway, but I try not to give them too much shit because on one hand they are kind of doing exactly what I think they should do and just be like, yep, here it is, full frontal nudity. But then the other thing is they're trying too hard to like appease what they think is some kind of woke crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying there shouldn't be trans people or anything like that in their game, but the way that they're approaching transness is pretty bad. Like it seems like most trans people that I've spoken to about it, they don't want to be boiled down to the genitals. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They'd like to be a little more androgynous in the entire appearance, not just in dicks or no dicks, or boobs and no boobs. And they think it's very they think it's nice to have the option, but if you're gonna go that far, really go that far, and be able to customize the whole kit and caboodle, as they say.
Well, we should touch on that because that's an interesting topic on customization of a character.
I think we
It's the thing.
talked about it with, I don't think it was Delvin. Maybe it was Delvin Cox. I can't remember, but it was during the no, it was during the LGBT panel that came out, I think. I don't remember,
Oh, but
but
you
I
were
spoke
talking
about it
about
with
Saints
someone.
Row 3 and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Um, but yeah, that's how I feel about it. Just show the damn nudity. Give us the pickle. Give us the butt. Just put it out there. Do I want the butt to be like super big and really nice and like
yes.
round and yeah,
Yes.
hello,
Are
but
we?
like show it already. Stop hiding it all the time, and also make it bigger. Thank you.
We
I'll be here
support.
all week.
We support a big juicy booty.
We do. Large snackable booty.
Yes. So well, I know Corey's gonna have a fun time with that one, and I'm gonna tell him to put it in.
Snackable ass.
Yes. Well, let's get into your 1v1 then. Because you probably have things to do today. Um,
Yeah, let's do it.
I really can't wait to hear what your thoughts about the Metacritic wait period. The user review.
Wait, Metacritic has a wait period
Yes. So you have to wait 76 hours. No, is it 76 hours?
to
No,
review?
36 hours. You got to wait 36 hours to do a user review for a game. So you can't review bomb it when the game comes out or anything. You have to wait a day and a half to do it. Because
Okay.
Nintendo Life just put it out there for that for it. And so I streamed Cuphead yesterday talking about it. And I was just and it came to my mind. I was just like, I wonder what Kamijace thinks about that.
Yeah, I got thoughts already. Okay, let's do it. I'm in.
Okay, let us go.